The darkness of space suddenly blazed with light as thousands of alien warships appeared near Earth. The massive fleet stretched across the void like a metal city, each ship bigger than anything humans had ever built. Red and orange lights pulsed along their hulls, and strange symbols glowed on their sides. Admiral Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the largest vessel in the Armada. His gray skin was marked with ritual scars, and his yellow eyes gleamed with confidence. Behind him, dozens of alien crew members worked at control panels, their movements quick and efficient. They had done this many times before. "Report," Vex commanded, his voice deep and harsh. 10,000 ships have successfully jumped into the human system, Admiral," replied his second-in-command, a smaller alien with 4 arms. "All weapons are charged and ready. Our scouts report the humans have only primitive technology." Vex clicked his claws together in satisfaction. The Corvan Empire had conquered 4 to 7 worlds in the past century. This blue planet called Earth would be number 48. According to their intelligence, humans had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They were babies compared to the mighty Corvan fleet. "Show me their defenses," Vex ordered. The main screen flickered to life, displaying Earth in the distance. The planet looked peaceful, with white clouds swirling over blue oceans and green continents. But Vex was not interested in its beauty. He wanted to see their military forces. "Admiral," the weapons officer called out, his voice confused. "We are detecting only one human vessel." "One?" Vex laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Surely their fleet is hiding behind their moon or among the asteroids." "No, sir. Long-range sensors confirm it. There is only one ship." The screen zoomed in on a sleek vessel hanging motionless near Earth's moon. It was smaller than even their smallest escort ships, with smooth lines and no visible weapons. The human ship looked more like a metal arrow than a warship. It bore the letters UES Vengeance on its hull. Vex studied the lone human ship with growing amusement. They send one ship to face 10,000? Either these humans are the bravest creatures in the galaxy, or they are complete fools. "Perhaps they do not realize the size of our fleet," suggested the navigator. "Impossible," Vex replied. "Our ships would be visible to even their primitive sensors. No, this is something else. Perhaps it is a sacrificial gesture. Many species send their best ship to die gloriously when they know defeat is certain." The bridge fell silent as the crew contemplated this possibility. It would be almost honorable, if humans possessed such concepts. "Or," added the weapons officer, "they believe their single ship can somehow defeat us all." The bridge erupted in laughter. Even the usually serious Vex found himself chuckling at the absurdity. One ship against 10,000? The idea was so ridiculous it was almost entertaining. "Open a communication channel," Vex commanded. "Let us speak to these brave fools before we destroy them." While his crew worked to establish contact, Vex walked to the massive windows at the front of his bridge. Space stretched out before him, filled with his magnificent fleet. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a continent. Together, they could crack planets in half. The human ship looked so small and helpless in comparison. It just floated there, not moving, not fleeing, not attacking. It simply waited. "Channel open, Admiral," reported the communications officer. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Vex of the Corvan Empire," he began, his voice broadcast across space. "You are surrounded by the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Your world will belong to us within the day. However, if you surrender now, we will allow your ship to depart unharmed." There was no immediate response. The human ship continued to drift silently near their moon. "Perhaps their communication systems are too primitive to receive our signal," suggested the navigator. "Give them time," Vex replied. "Fear often makes creatures slow to respond." Finally, after several long minutes, a voice crackled over the speakers. It was calm, steady, and completely unafraid. "Admiral Vex, this is Captain William Harris of the Earth Defense Ship Vengeance. I appreciate your generous offer, but I'm afraid we must decline." Vex blinked in surprise. The human's tone was polite but firm, as if he were declining an invitation to dinner rather than facing annihilation. "Captain Harris," Vex replied slowly, "I do not think you understand your situation. You are one ship facing 10,000. Surrender now, and live to see tomorrow." "I understand perfectly, Admiral," Harris responded. "One ship versus 10,000. Those seem like fair odds." The Corvan bridge fell completely silent. Every crew member stopped working and stared at the speakers in disbelief. Had this human just suggested that one ship was a fair match for their entire armada? Vex felt his anger rising. Captain Harris, your bravery is noted, but your foolishness will be your death. This is your final warning. Admiral Vex, the human voice replied, still maddeningly calm, this is your final warning. You have 60 seconds to begin withdrawing your fleet from our system. After that, we will consider your presence an act of war. The silence that followed was deafening. Vex stared at the communication panel as if it had just spoken in an ancient dead language. A human captain was giving him an ultimatum? A single ship was threatening the entire Corvan Armada? Sir, whispered the weapons officer. Your orders. Vex's yellow eyes blazed with fury as he glared at the small human ship on his screen. No species had ever dared speak to the Corvan Empire with such disrespect. This insult would be answered with fire and destruction. All ships, he commanded, his voice echoing across the fleet, prepare to attack. Admiral Vex's claws gripped the edges of his command console as he stared at the human ship on his screen. The Vengeance hung in space like a silver needle, completely motionless and seemingly unaware of the massive threat surrounding it. The audacity of these humans was beyond belief. Communications, open a fleet-wide channel, Vex commanded. His yellow eyes burned with rage as he prepared to address his captains. All ships, this is Admiral Vex. The humans have rejected our generous offer of surrender. Prepare for immediate attack. Across the vast Armada, 10,000 warships began powering up their weapons systems. Energy readings spiked as plasma cannons charged and missile tubes loaded. The space around Earth filled with the ominous red glow of targeting systems locking onto the lone human vessel. Captain William Harris stood calmly on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching the alien fleet prepare for battle. His crew moved quietly around him, each person focused on their duties. Lieutenant Sarah Mills monitored the communication systems while Sergeant Tom Baker kept watch on the weapons displays. Captain, Mills reported, the alien fleet is charging weapons. Energy signatures are off the charts. Harris nodded slowly. Any word from Earth Command? Yes, sir. Admiral Johnson sends his regards and wishes us good hunting. A slight smile crossed Harris's weathered face. Signal the fleet to maintain position. Time to show our visitors what they are dealing with. Back on the Corvan flagship, Vex watched his tactical display with satisfaction. Every ship in his armada was ready for battle. Their combined firepower could destroy entire star systems. One small human ship would be vaporized in seconds. Admiral, his weapons officer announced, all ships report ready to fire. Target locked on the human vessel. Yes, sir. Multiple targeting solutions confirmed. Vex raised his clawed hand, savoring the moment. These arrogant humans would learn the price of defying the Corvan Empire. Fire at will. The space around Earth erupted in brilliant light. 10,000 warships unleashed their fury simultaneously. Plasma bolts streaked through the void like falling stars. Energy beams carved bright lines across the darkness. Missiles streaked toward their target, leaving glowing trails behind them. The barrage was magnificent and terrible. It was enough firepower to crack moons and boil oceans. The combined energy output could have powered entire civilizations for years. Every weapon in the Corvan arsenal focused on one small point in space where the human ship waited. The attack continued for 30 seconds that felt like hours. The brightness was so intense that viewing screens automatically dimmed to prevent blindness. The energy signatures were so powerful that sensor arrays struggled to process the data. When the weapons finally stopped firing, space fell silent. Glowing particles drifted where the devastating barrage had struck. Sensor officers across the fleet worked frantically to clear their displays and confirm the kill. Report, Vex demanded, his voice heavy with satisfaction. The weapons officer studied his instruments, his face confused. Sir, I'm reading, that can't be right. What is it? Vex snapped. The human ship, Admiral. It's still there. Vex spun toward the main screen, his eyes wide with disbelief. The display cleared, showing the aftermath of their massive attack. Where the Vengeance should have been nothing but scattered atoms, the sleek human ship hung in space exactly where it had been before. It was completely undamaged. Not a single scorch mark marred its hull. Its lights still blinked steadily. It hadn't even moved. Impossible, Vex whispered. Run a full sensor sweep. Confirm the target. Multiple scans confirm, Admiral. The human vessel shows no damage whatsoever. In fact, our sensors indicate it didn't even activate defensive shields. A cold silence fell over the Corvan bridge. Every crew member stared at the impossible sight on their screens. The most devastating attack in their military history had accomplished absolutely nothing. Perhaps our weapons malfunctioned, suggested the navigator, his voice hopeful. All 10,000 ships, the weapons officer replied. Simultaneously? That's not possible. Captain Harris's voice crackled over the communication channel, breaking the stunned silence. His tone remained infuriatingly calm and polite. Admiral Vex, that was quite impressive. Very dramatic. I hope you got it out of your system. Vex found his voice with difficulty. How? How are you still alive? Well, Admiral, let me ask you something. Did you really think you were the first species to try this approach? The human captain's words sent a chill down Vex's spine. What do you mean? I mean that humanity has been dealing with aggressive visitors for quite some time now. You're not our first encounter with a species that believes might makes right. Harris paused, letting his words sink in. The last group that tried your tactics was the Zelkari hegemony. Before them, it was the Thaxan Empire. And before them, well, let's just say we've had plenty of practice. Vex's mind raced. The Zelkari hegemony had been a major power in this sector of the galaxy. Their fleets had conquered dozens of worlds. But they had vanished completely about 50 years ago. No trace of them had ever been found. You're lying, Vex snarled. Humans are primitive. You've barely learned to travel between stars. That's what they all thought, Harris replied. Right up until they realized their mistake. The human ship suddenly moved for the first time since the Corvan fleet had arrived. But it didn't flee or retreat. Instead, it turned slowly to face the massive Armada directly, like a predator sizing up its prey. Admiral Vex, Harris's voice continued, you seem like a reasonable being. I'm going to give you one more chance to withdraw your fleet peacefully. After that, I'm afraid we'll have to consider this a hostile invasion. Vex's rage overwhelmed his growing fear. You dare threaten us? You are one ship. Yes, Harris replied simply. One ship should be more than enough. The communication channel closed, leaving the Corvan fleet in stunned silence. Admiral Vex stared at the communication panel in disbelief. The human captain had just cut off their conversation as if he were dismissing a servant. The silence on the Corvan bridge stretched for long moments as every crew member tried to process what they had witnessed. Sir, the weapons officer finally spoke, his voice shaking. Our most powerful weapons had no effect. What are your orders? Vex's claws scraped against his command chair. His mind struggled to accept what had happened. The combined firepower of 10,000 ships should have destroyed anything in the galaxy. Yet this single human vessel remained completely untouched. Perhaps their ship has some kind of advanced shielding, suggested the navigator. If we concentrate all our fire on one spot, we might break through. Or we could try ramming them, added another officer. No shield can stop the physical impact of our battleships. Vex considered these options, but something cold was growing in his stomach. The human captain had spoken with such confidence, such certainty. It reminded him of stories his grandfather had told about the ancient Corvan warriors who feared nothing because they knew they could not be defeated. Admiral, the communications officer interrupted his thoughts. The human is transmitting again. The main screen flickered to life, showing Captain Harris standing on his bridge. The human looked completely relaxed, his hands clasped behind his back. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, showing no signs of stress or fear. Admiral Vex, Harris began, I can see you're having trouble deciding what to do next. Let me help you with that decision. Harris walked closer to the camera, his blue eyes steady and calm. You have exactly 30 seconds to order your fleet to begin withdrawal from our system. If you do not, we will consider this an official act of war against humanity. You're bluffing, Vex snarled, though his voice lacked conviction. One ship cannot defeat 10,000. 25 seconds, Harris replied, glancing at something off-screen. Panic began to spread through the Corvan fleet. Ship captains bombarded their admiral with urgent communications, demanding orders and explanations. Some suggested retreat while others called for an all-out assault. 15 seconds. Vex's pride warred with a growing sense of dread. The Corvan Empire had never retreated from battle. Their reputation throughout the galaxy was built on overwhelming force and absolute victory. But something about this situation felt wrong, felt dangerous in a way he couldn't explain. 10 seconds. All ships, Vex commanded suddenly, launch all fighters. Deploy every weapon system. I want that human ship turned to dust. 5 seconds. The Corvan Armada erupted into action. Thousands of fighter craft poured from launch bays like angry insects. Every battleship, cruiser, and destroyer opened fire at maximum power. The space around the Vengeance filled with enough destructive energy to sterilize entire planets. "Time's up," Harris said quietly. The human ship moved for the second time, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of dodging or running, it simply rotated slightly, as if adjusting its position for better comfort. Then something impossible happened. Every plasma bolt, every energy beam, every missile fired by the Corvan fleet simply stopped. They didn't hit shields or armor. They didn't explode or dissipate. They just stopped in midspace, hanging motionless like frozen lightning. The thousands of fighter craft found their engines cutting out one by one. Their weapons stopped working. Their communication systems went dead. The small ships drifted helplessly, their pilots trapped inside powerless machines. "What's happening?" Vex screamed at his crew. "Report." "Sir, all our weapons have stopped functioning," the weapons officer replied, his voice filled with terror. "Energy readings are dropping across the fleet. It's like something is draining our power systems." On the main screen, Captain Harris shook his head sadly. "You really should have taken the offer, Admiral." The Vengeance began to glow. Not with the harsh red light of weapons charging, but with a soft blue radiance that seemed to pulse with life. The glow spread outward like ripples on a pond, washing over the frozen attacks and drifting fighters. Then the human ship responded. Beams of pure white light lanced out from the Vengeance, but these weren't weapons of destruction. They were tools of precision. Each beam struck a different Corvan ship with surgical accuracy, not to destroy but to disable. The first beam hit Vex's flagship. Every weapon system shut down instantly. The lights flickered and dimmed. The artificial gravity fluctuated, causing crew members to float briefly before settling back to the deck. Across the fleet, the same thing happened to every ship. Weapon systems failed. Engines sputtered and died. Shield generators overloaded and shut down. Communication arrays went silent. But the life support systems remained intact. The lights stayed on. The crew remained safe and unharmed. In less than 5 minutes, the mightiest fleet in Corvan history had been reduced to 10,000 helpless hulks drifting in space. Not a single crew member had been killed or injured, but their ships were as powerless as ancient sailing vessels in a dead calm. "Impossible," Vex whispered, staring at his dead control panels. "How?" Captain Harris's image appeared on every functioning screen throughout the fleet. His expression was serious but not cruel. "Attention Corvan Empire fleet," he announced. "Your ships have been disabled but not destroyed. Your crews are safe and will remain so as long as you cooperate. You are now prisoners of the United Earth Defense Force." Vex slumped in his command chair, the weight of total defeat crushing his spirit. "We had 10,000 ships," he muttered. "Yes, you did," Harris agreed. "And now you have 10,000 very expensive pieces of scrap metal. The question is, Admiral, what happens next? That depends entirely on your next decision." The human captain leaned forward, his blue eyes boring into Vex's yellow ones through the screen. "Are you ready to listen now, Admiral? Because I have a story to tell you about humanity and why 18 different species have learned not to threaten our home." The silence across the Corvan fleet was deafening. 10,000 warships drifted helplessly in space, their proud crews staring at dead control panels and darkened weapon systems. Admiral Vex sat slumped in his command chair, his yellow eyes fixed on the main screen where Captain Harris waited patiently. "You want to know how one ship defeated 10,000, Harris said, his voice carrying clearly across the communication channels to every disabled vessel. "The answer is simple. You're not the first to try this, Admiral Vex. You're not even close." Harris walked across his bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. His crew continued their work calmly, as if disabling entire fleets was routine for them. Lieutenant Mills adjusted her instruments while Sergeant Baker monitored the alien ships for any signs of recovery. 53 years ago, Harris began, humanity achieved faster-than-light travel. We were excited, curious, ready to explore the galaxy and meet our neighbors. We built small ships and sent them to nearby star systems, hoping to find friends among the stars. Vex found his voice with difficulty. "What does this have to do with anything?" "Patience, Admiral. The first species we encountered were the Zelkari. They had a fleet of 8,000 ships, much like yours. They took one look at our primitive technology and decided Earth would make a fine addition to their empire." Harris stopped walking and turned to face the camera directly. "The Zelkari made the same mistake you did. They assumed that because we were new to space travel, we were helpless. They attacked Earth with everything they had." The human captain's expression grew serious. "They lost. Every ship, every crew member. Not because we were stronger, but because they underestimated what humans do when someone threatens our home. Across the Corvan fleet, alien crew members listened with growing unease. The Zelkari hegemony had been a major power in this sector of space. Their sudden disappearance 50 years ago had been one of the great mysteries of the galaxy. The Zelkari taught us many things, Harris continued. They taught us how their shields worked, how their weapons functioned, how their engines operated. We studied every piece of their technology and made it better. He gestured to his ship around him. 5 years later, the Thaxan Empire arrived with 12,000 ships. They had heard rumors about the Zelkari disappearance but dismissed them as impossible. They made the same assumptions, the same mistakes. Vex's claws gripped his armrests tighter. The Thaxan Empire had also vanished without a trace, their fate unknown to the galactic community. The Thaxans lasted longer than the Zelkari, Harris said with a slight smile. Almost 3 hours. They brought new technology, new weapons, new tactics. We learned from all of it. We always learn. Lieutenant Mills stepped forward on the human bridge. Captain, shall I show them the memorial? Good idea, Lieutenant. The screen shifted to show a vast wall covered in strange symbols and alien writing. Names and dates stretched across the surface in dozens of different languages, each entry carefully carved into black stone. This is our memorial to the fallen, Harris explained. Every species that has tried to conquer Earth is remembered here. The Zelkari, the Thaxans, the Mordak Collective, the Vaxane Horde, the Kree Supremacy. 18 different civilizations in 53 years. The camera moved along the wall, showing entry after entry. Each one represented an entire military force that had vanished completely, leaving only questions and fear in their wake. Each species taught us something new, Harris continued. The Mordak showed us how to bend space-time around our ships. The Vaxians had incredible energy weapons that we reverse-engineered and improved. The Kree brought quantum computers that made our tactical systems far more advanced. Vex stared at the memorial wall in horror. 18 species. 18 fleets like his own, all destroyed by these seemingly primitive humans. You're lying, he whispered. Humans are barely spacefaring. You're a young species. We are young, Harris agreed, turning back to the camera. But we're fast learners. Every species that threatened our home taught us new ways to defend it. Every attack made us stronger, smarter, more dangerous. The screen returned to show Captain Harris on his bridge. Behind him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements precise and confident. The truth is, Admiral, we don't want to conquer anyone. We never have. All we want is to live in peace on our small blue planet. But every time someone tries to take that away from us, we learn from them. We adapt. We improve. Harris walked closer to the camera again. Your Corvan technology is quite impressive, by the way. Your energy weapons are more efficient than anything the previous 17 species brought us. Your shield harmonics are fascinating. We'll learn much from studying your ships. No, Vex said, his voice barely a whisper. Our ships contain classified technology. Military secrets of the Corvan Empire. Not anymore, Harris replied simply. Your ships are already being scanned and analyzed. Our computers are breaking down every system, every component, every line of code. By tomorrow, we'll understand your technology better than you do. The human captain's expression softened slightly. But here's the thing, Admiral. You're going to be the first species to leave this system alive. All of you. Vex looked up sharply. What? 18 species have tried to conquer Earth. 17 of them were destroyed completely. But you, Admiral Vex, are going to carry a message back to the galaxy. Harris stepped back, his hands clasped behind his back again. You're going to tell every civilization, every empire, every species you encounter about what happened here. You're going to explain that humanity doesn't seek war, but we're very, very good at it when someone forces our hand. The communication channel fell silent as the weight of Harris's words settled over the disabled fleet. 10,000 Corvan warriors sat in their powerless ships, finally understanding the terrible truth about the species they had tried to conquer. They were alive only because the humans wanted them to be. Admiral Vex sat in his darkened command chair, staring at the human captain on his flickering screen. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically with emergency power, their faces pale with shock and defeat. The proud Corvan fleet, once the terror of 4 to 7 worlds, now drifted helplessly like cosmic debris. You said we would be the first to leave alive, Vex said, his voice hoarse. Why? Why spare us when you destroyed all the others? Captain Harris clasped his hands behind his back, considering the question. Because 17 destroyed fleets have taught the galaxy nothing, Admiral. Ship disappear, rumors spread, but no one knows the truth. Fear without understanding leads to more attacks, more mistakes. He walked to the edge of his bridge, looking out at the disabled Corvan Armada. But witnesses? Survivors who can tell the real story? That's much more effective than mystery. Lieutenant Mills approached her captain with a data pad. Sir, our scans are complete. We've mapped every system on their ships. The technology integration will take about 6 months. Excellent work, Lieutenant. Harris turned back to face Admiral Vex. You heard that, Admiral. 6 months from now, everything you brought here will be part of Earth's defenses. Your weapons, your shields, your engines, all of it improved and integrated into our systems. Vex closed his eyes in despair. Centuries of Corvan military development, handed to these humans in a single day. The Empire would never recover from such a loss. However, Harris continued, I'm prepared to offer you something. A chance to leave with more than just your lives. The Corvan Admiral opened his eyes, a spark of desperate hope flickering within them. What do you mean? I mean a choice, Admiral. Option 1. You limp home with your broken ships and tell your people that the mighty Corvan Empire was defeated by a single human vessel. Your careers end in disgrace, your empire loses face, and 18 months from now, some other ambitious admiral will try their luck against Earth. Harris paused, letting the grim scenario sink in before continuing. Option 2, you become our messengers. You carry a message throughout the galaxy that will save countless lives. What kind of message? Vex asked warily. The human captain gestured to Lieutenant Mills, who activated a recording device. A warning to every species considering aggression against humanity. A detailed explanation of what happens to those who threaten Earth. The truth about the 18 fleets that came before you. Sergeant Baker stepped forward with a sealed container. This contains complete records of our encounters with previous invasion forces. Technical specifications of their ships before and after we captured them. Battle recordings. Interviews with survivors from the few ships we allowed to escape. You let some survive before? Vex asked, surprised. A handful, Harris nodded. 1 or 2 ships from each fleet, usually. But they were so traumatized, so broken, that their reports were dismissed as madness. No one believed them. That's why the attacks kept coming. The human captain moved closer to the camera. But you, Admiral Vex, commanded 10,000 ships. Your voice carries weight in galactic politics. Your testimony will be believed. Lieutenant Mills activated another display, showing a map of known space. Red markers indicated various star systems, each one representing a major military power. The Andromedan Collective is building a war fleet aimed at human space, she reported. The Titan Republic has been asking questions about Earth's defenses. The hegemony of 5 suns is mobilizing their battle groups. All of them making the same mistake, Harris said quietly. All of them convinced that humanity is weak because we're young. All of them preparing to join the memorial wall. Vex studied the star map with growing understanding. So many civilizations, so many potential fleets heading toward Earth. All of them would suffer the same fate as his own forces unless someone warned them. What exactly do you want us to tell them? He asked. Harris smiled grimly. The truth. That humanity doesn't conquer, but we excel at defense. That every species who has tried to take our home has only made us stronger. That Earth is not a prize to be won, it's a graveyard for the ambitious. The communication channel crackled as another voice joined the conversation. A woman appeared beside Captain Harris, wearing the uniform of a high-ranking officer. Admiral Vex, I'm Admiral Susan Carter, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, she said. I want to make something very clear to you. We don't enjoy what we do. Every ship we've destroyed, every crew we've killed, it weighs on us. Carter stepped closer to the camera. But we will not allow anyone to threaten our home. Ever. If that means turning the space around Earth into a graveyard of starships, then that's what we'll do. She gestured toward the disabled Corvan fleet. Your ships will be restored to minimal power in 2 hours. Enough to reach the edge of our system. From there, you'll have enough fuel to reach the nearest inhabited world. And then? Vex asked. Then you spread the word, Harris said. You tell every military leader, every government, every species with ambitions toward Earth exactly what happened here. You explain that humanity has been collecting the best technology from across the galaxy for 53 years. You make it clear that we're not the primitive species they think we are. Admiral Carter added, most importantly, you tell them that we're willing to live in peace with our neighbors. Trade, cultural exchange, scientific cooperation, we want all of that. But anyone who comes to our system with weapons will join the 18 fleets that came before them. The recording device in Sergeant Baker's hands beeped softly, indicating the message was complete. He sealed it in the container and held it up to the camera. This contains everything, Harris said. Technical data, battle recordings, testimony from previous survivors. Proof that every word you tell them is true. Vex stared at the container, understanding the weight of what was being offered. His fleet was ruined, his empire's military secrets compromised, his own career likely over. But he could save lives. He could prevent other species from making the same fatal mistake. We'll take your message, he said finally. We'll warn them all. Excellent, Harris nodded. Safe travels, Admiral. May your words prevent future bloodshed. The human ship began to move away, leaving the Corvan fleet to contemplate their defeat and their unexpected survival.